Hi, welcome back to Polly's Introduction to Computer Network. So you see that the background is yet a little bit different this week because Polly is in self-quarantine, returning back from Boston just 2 days ago. Yeah, so good afternoon to Hongru and Youxiang and Tanya and Chendi. So the to-dos, we do have 2 quizzes today. So they'll be due by Saturday. And exam 2 is up tomorrow. Okay, so exam 2, it's going to be simpler. Okay, less tricky questions like exam 1, but it'll be longer. Okay, so this is to make sure that you don't have enough time to complete the whole exam. Okay, good. Now, the topics today. So we are not quite yet done going through the entire finite state machine of TCP's condition control. So the remaining part is called fast recovery. So it's an optimization that we made into TCP's window size adjustment when there are 3 duplicate acts, because that is a very special situation, right? So with 3 duplicate acts, you detect a packet loss. But it's not like the timeout kind of timer timeout kind of packet loss. It's probably more a packet loss that is somewhat random. Unlike a timeout loss is very likely somewhere in the middle of the internet. It's congested and none of the packets go through. Therefore, there are no duplicate acts coming back at all. But duplicate act duplicate act packet drop is triggered by receiving duplicate acknowledgements. So in one flight of packet, 1 or maybe 2 packets are dropped, but the remaining packets in that flight gets to the destination, and therefore duplicate acts can come back. So that is not such a bad situation where you see packet drops. Okay, so now fast recovery here is to try to add a little bit more mechanism when it's packet drop as we observe duplicate acknowledgements, because it's a case where if you just retransmit that lost packet 1 or 2, then hey, everything might be back to normal. So maybe we don't need to slow down that aggressively, right? So here's the finite state machine of fast recovery. And before that, of course, the beginning of the video is going to be showing the entire finite state machine of TCP's condition control. This finite state machine, now we walk through it. It's kind of symmetric and clean, relatively easy to track. This is also the mechanism implemented in the TCP Tahoe, the version 1. In TCP Reno, it's actually being extended. So the hack here is called the fast recovery. Now, this version looks substantially complicated, but let me tell you this, hopefully makes it a bit simpler for you. The only transitions that are actually touched from the previous finite state machine are just these. Okay, the case where the dupe act count reaches 3. So previously what we do is this. We set the SS thresh to have the window size and the window size to SS thresh. But now, okay, in Reno, we actually add 3 more segments to the window size. So we are actually a little bit more generous about setting the window size. And the logic behind this is, hey, if we receive 3 duplicate acts, that means the channel between the sender and receiver, there's enough capacity to allow 3 data segments to go. Although out of order, still triggering duplicate acts to come back, right? So 3 spaces, therefore generating 3 duplicate acts. So there's enough capacity, right? So we don't have to go all the way down, okay, or half down. So as long as, hey, we're seeing, duplicate acts, that means the capacity is still there. Maybe this is just a very, short-term condition, short-term precondition, okay, happening. So maybe we just keep, pushing a little bit more, and when this short-term outage or short-term condition goes out, then we can come back to normal. Okay, so this is the logic behind the fast recovery mechanism here. So after adding 3 more segments to the window size, we enter the fast recovery state. And staying in the fast recovery state, we apply the same logic. As long as we receive a duplicate act, we continue to increment the window size. Because being able to receive a duplicate act is because we allow 1 data to go out, right? Yeah. So this is going to be repeated until what? Until we finally get a new egg back, or yeah, all these extra packet we send out by being more generous about the window size somehow get dropped in the middle, meaning the congestion is not short term. It's a bit more pathological, persistent. So we will run into timeout here. In this case, drop the window size to 1, feel free. But if it's in this case, it's okay. Then we can just reset the window size to normal, which is half of the window size, and then go back to the congestion avoidance state, and then begin linear increase again. Yeah, and that takes us to the first quiz today. It's quiz 28. It is exactly asking you to exercise the finite state machine with fast recovery and without fast recovery as well. So Q1 is to ask you to figure out what the SS thresh and congestion window size, as well as some of the packet sequence number that will be generating if it's a TCP without fast recovery. And Q2 if it's with fast recovery. Okay, so the scenario is shown on the right. So we have two hosts. Host A here is the data sender. Host B is the machine generating the acknowledgements for the data packet. So you see that this connection at the beginning, so there are probably some more packet exchange already, but at this point, at the starting point in the scenario, we see host A's congestion window size is 4, and SS thresh is 8 MSS. So under such a condition, congestion window size being 4, so we are allowed to send 4 packets in one flight. And these 4 packets being at the beginning, so the sequence number will be 0, 1, 2, 3 MSS. Okay, so that's the first byte of the packet. All right. And you see that in this scenario, I'm enforcing each packet is exactly 1 MSS bytes, just to make sure that it's simple enough for you to work on. Host B here will receive, the first packet, the second packet, but the third packet will be dropped in the network, and then the fourth packet will come. You see that the first 2 packets will generate 2 acknowledgements. Okay, so these are packets that are expected by the receiver. So, yeah, the acknowledgement will be what? Sending with a sequence number that the host B is expecting next. So for packet 0 MSS, yeah, the next packet expected is what? 1 MSS. Okay, so for the second ACK 2 MSS. Well, there's no ACK for the third packet, but there's a third ACK, but that is actually a return from for the fourth data packet. But in this case, according to the finite state machine, we should be sending a duplicate ACK. Therefore, that ACK sequence number is still 2 MSS. All right. So these 3 ACKs will come back to host A. Host A here receiving ACK 1 MSS. What would it do? Well, it's a new ACK. So congestion window size needs to be incremented. And as we see, SS thresh is 8 MSS. Current CWND is 4 MSS. So it's below the threshold, so we are still in the slow start state. And therefore, we increment the congestion window size by 1 MSS per acknowledgement. So CWND is CWND plus 1, essentially. Similarly, receiving ACK 2 MSS, this is a new ACK. So again, window size is incremented by 1. So we have 5 MSS and 6 MSS, okay, reacting to the 2 ACK packets coming back. And as the window size are incremented to 5 and 6, right, there's one more packet we can send. So ACK1 MSS will actually trigger 2 more packets to go. One is to use the slot that's empty now, knowing packet 1, the first packet has completed, right? And then the second packet will be because now the single window size is now 4 packets. So we get to send 2 more packets, okay, in reaction to receiving ACK 1 MSS. Similarly, reacting to ACK 2 MSS, we send 2 packets. All right, so these 2 packets will then be carrying sequence number 4, 5, and 6, 7. So previously we sent 4 packets, 0, 1, 2, 3. And the next packet sequence number will be what? 4, 5, 6, 7. So similarly, these 4 packets will come to host B, right? And then generating more eggs. But these are still out of order. Therefore, all the eggs we return are all egg to MSS. All right. By the way, the third egg coming back from host B, right after arriving at the host A, right after we change window size to 6 MSS. What do we do with that? I think you are looking up the finite state machine, right? So, hey, previously we had already egg to MSS. This is also egg to MSS. Yeah, it's a duplicate egg. So we follow the transition that says duplicate egg. What do we do there? There's a duplicate egg count, isn't it? And we'll need to increment that by 1. So then we'll be counting and see if there are 3 duplicate eggs. Very good. So far so good. Now let's see. Those 4 duplicate eggs, okay, from host B will come back to host A. So the first 2 will still be duplicate eggs, right? But the first 2 will then trigger the duplicate egg transition, isn't it? And so they will increment the count from 1 to 2 and then 2 to 3. Therefore, the second duplicate egg in this round will also trigger duplicate egg count equal 3 transition. And at that time, the threshold as well as the window size will need to be changed. And how they are changed will differ depending on whether there's fast recovery or not. Okay, so A and B, what should the value be if it's Q1 without fast recovery or Q2 with fast recovery? Okay, and in return of receiving 3 duplicate eggs, right? So of course we change the threshold and window size, but what do? I think in both cases, Q1 or Q2, we retransmit the gap, right? Which is the third packet, which is 2 MSS. Okay, so I'm actually telling you C should be 2. But then there'll be 2 more eggs arriving at host A in this round. So what would the threshold and congestion window size being changed accordingly? And would these duplicate eggs generate more packets to be sent? So note that I'm using dotted line here because they might be sent or they might not be sent depending on really whether we are using the finite state machine without fast recovery or with fast recovery. Good. Now you see the scenario, although it looks simple, but as you walk through it, it can be a little bit complex. Now, let's move to workspace, Slack space, W11 quiz 28 channel. You have 8 minutes time. Okay, so take your time, go through the finite state machine, try to work the solution through. What would the value of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I be for Q1 as well as for Q2? 8 minutes, take your time. Okay, work it through. By the way, guys, this problem, this quiz, there's a similar problem set in the exam. Okay, so yeah, get it clear. Good. 8 minutes, take your time. Okay, so we do have 4 teams, very brave, and provided their solution. Oh, okay. So team 4 updated the solution. Okay, good. Yeah, so team 4, the solution for Q1 is almost correct. For Q2, also almost correct. So I think the congestion window and threshold part of your solutions are all right. So indeed, congestion window size and threshold after receiving 3 duplicate acts, if there's no fast recovery, what do? We simply set the threshold to half the congestion window size just slightly earlier. So we had 6 MSS. We had 6 MSS, right? Before we detect 3 duplicate act. Therefore, threshold here is set to half of 6, 3. And congestion window size is exactly 3 if there's no fast recovery. If we do have fast recovery, what do? Yeah, we set the SS thresh to half the window size, and then the window size to SS thresh plus 3 MSS. And so previously, CWND is 6, so new threshold with fast recovery will be 3. So A would also be 3 if it's Q2. B will be what? 3 plus 3. That'll be 6 for Q2. All right, are you seeing why the solution for Q1, the value of A and B should be 3, 3. For Q2, value of A and B should be 3, 6. All right. And you know what? After detecting 3 duplicate act, what do? In the transition, it says also, right? Not just changing the congestion window size and SS thresh. We also do this. Retransmit the missing segment. So who's the missing segment? Yeah, the missing segment that the host B keeps asking for. Hey guys, send me 2 MSS. I'm expecting 2 MSS. I'm getting a lot of packets, but none of them are 2 MSS. You see? That's the meaning of the duplicate act. So that number there in the duplicate act is exactly host B is saying, I ask for 2 MSS. So sender here, host A, sends 2 MSS. And this is actually the same, whether it's without fast recovery or with fast recovery. Okay. All right, Kevin, glad that you managed to come to the lecture. Okay. Sorry, hope that you find your bike later. Good. So far we solved A, B, and C. What about DE? Okay, so let's focus on DE without fast recovery. Okay, so DE will be another duplicate act coming in after 3 duplicate act, isn't it? So what we do there? So duplicate act triggers in without fast recovery simply adding the count. And as we trigger the 3 duplicate act transition earlier, we reset the duplicate act count to 0, right? So right now here, DE won't be changed. So it remains the same as AB. But only the duplicate act count is now 1. Okay? So DE 3, 3. What about with fast recovery? We are seeing 1 more duplicate act, right? So the threshold did not change. But you see, in this transition, we already in the fast recovery state, because after 3 duplicate act, either way, we'll be shifting to the fast recovery state. In the fast recovery state, so we are in fast recovery state after we change SS thresh and CWND to A and B. So currently we are still in the fast recovery state. And receiving a duplicate act next is, window size condition window size needs to be incremented by 1. So it was 6 here in fast recovery, right? So B was 6 in fast recovery. And E now needs to be added by 1, therefore. Yeah, so D and E for fast recovery, finite state machine, it should be 3 and 7. 6 plus 1, 7. Good. What about F and G? Well, this is actually receiving another duplicate ACK, right? So that's the last duplicate ACK. So you know that in the finite state machine, without fast recovery, we don't change congestion window size, we don't change SS thresh. But the duplicate ACK count will be incremented by 1. So FG remain the same. Again, 3, 3. Only the dupe ACK count now is 2. What about with fast recovery? Well, SS thresh does not change, right? We see already that transition earlier, trying to get the value of D and E. And now duplicate ACK means the CW and D will need to be added by 1 more packet, right? So G here, yeah, 8. All right. So far, so good, Team 4. Now, what packets do we generate, right, after receiving these last 2 duplicate ACKs? Hey, the finite state machine without fast recovery, after receiving duplicate ACK, we just increment the duplicate ACK count, right? And we do nothing. Therefore, Team 4, H and I there, we don't send packet at all. All right, so the value of H and I are just N/A or nil, or no, there's not going to be packet H and I. But what about here? In fast recovery, think about it. So we just retransmit. We were just retransmitting packet 2 MSS, right? After receiving the 3rd duplicate ACK. And at that particular point, in fast recovery mode, B is 6, meaning congestion window size is 6. We can have 6 packets out there, not yet ACKed. Okay. So how many packets at this point that we don't have and we have not yet ACKed? So packet 0 and 1 are ACKed. But 2 not yet ACKed. 3 not yet ACKed. 4, 5, 6, and 7. 6 of them, none of them are ACKed at the time we send 2 MSS. Surely we receive another duplicate ACK. E is now 7. Currently 6 packets out there, not yet ACKed. So that means the sender can send 1 more packet. So yeah, so there is a sequence H packet out. And that is in reaction to receiving, I think, the 4th duplicate ACK. And what should be the sequence number? What should be the value of H? Hey, what is the last packet we sent? It's 7 MSS. So H here should be 8 MSS. According to the transition duplicate ACK, we transmit a new segment. Okay, it's not a retransmission, okay? Yeah, MSS means the size. It's a unit. So what I meant there is that the sequence number of the ACK packet there is exactly 2 multiply MSS. I hope that is a little bit more clear, Chendi. Yeah, I guess many of you are still thinking, hey, Hey, what is the sequence number here? So in TCP, we do byte count. Instead of referring to like packet 1, packet 2, to try to make this problem simple enough for you to work on. Instead of saying packet 1, packet 2, I say packet 0 MSS, 1 MSS, 3 MSS. Yeah. So 2 MSS is actually asking for packet 3. All right, so back to here. H should be what? 8 MSS, because the transition says transmit a new segment. It's not a retransmission. All right. And therefore I, because in the next duplicate act, we increment the window size to 8. So we can send one more and one more new packet. So I should be 9. So HI for fast recovery should be 8 and 9. So team 4 is almost right. Ah, okay. Hey, Zijun was probably following what Polly was saying. Good, 8 and 9. Very good, very good. I see Caffrey working things out as well. Cayenne, very good. Except that H and I yet to be updated. HI yet to be added, Leon. Good. I think you guys get it this time. Because in previous exam 2, okay, not the semester, previous semesters of exam 2, this problem set is very often the least answered. Least, the problem said that get correct answers the least. Okay, so this semester I want to get it right and make sure that you guys know how to work TCP's congestion control finite state machine. All right, very good. And now we come back to continue the next topic. So we have just 2 more topics about TCP, and both of them are about further research people are pursuing to improve TCP. So the first one is about modeling TCP's throughput, because it's very important if we want to send a connection that's long and that requires a high throughput. Let's cover 2 more topics related to TCP, and these are about what the research community is doing trying to improve TCP for the future need. First is about how one improves TCP such that it can support long, fat pipe. Okay. What I meant by long pipe is a TCP connection that has long round trip time. And a fat pipe is that it has high throughput. Okay. And this is what we know. Okay. The sending rate or the throughput should equal the window size divided by round trip time. So this is 0.1 second. And the rate should be 10 gigabits per second. So you see the congestion window is essentially the 2 terms multiply, and that is 1 gigabits and approximately 110 megabyte. So at the sender side, receiver side, 100 megabyte is required to buffer the packets that are in flight. And this is just to maintain 1 connection, right? If you have 10 connections, that's already 1 gigabyte of memory. If you have 100 connections, that's going to probably take all your memory away. This is just one issue. Another issue is this. TCP is actually go back and like. What if you run into a packet loss that is triggered by having 3 duplicate acts? What we do there is we set the window size to half of the window size before a loss event is detected. And you know what? The window size, the number of packets there could be, can be as high as this, because if we divide this by 1500 byte, you get these many packets in flight. So in that case, we have to retransmit all the unact packets, okay, and half of the window size here, okay. So that's 41 and 666 something packets that we need to send. The bandwidth consumption there. Right? The amount of bandwidth we might be wasting there is very significant. So TCP, the current design, isn't really ideal to support long fat pipes. And this is actually assuming that there's no packet loss at all, no bit error at all. What if we have error? one will have to derive the TCP throughput model considering loss before one can see how big a problem it is to try to support long fat pipes. So let's try to do some derivation here and see if we can come up with the average TCP throughput, okay, provided the window size, round trip time. The assumption is that let's ignore the slow start, okay? Consider just the condition avoidance operation and assume that there's always data coming in. And the scenario is very simplistic, which is illustrated here. Over time, the changes of the window size is exactly from half of W increase all the way to W, and W is where the loss will always occur, and therefore we drop the window size back down to half W because this is in condition avoidance. When there's a loss, drop to half W. When there's a loss at W, drop to half W. Okay. And so it's not hard for you to see what is the average window size? Yeah, the midpoint here, right? So 3/4 of W. And therefore the throughput is what? The average window size divided by the round trip time, which is this term here. Now, if we plug in, yeah, this is the goal throughput, and this is the round trip delay. Now, what is the window size now? Well, it will be this term multiplying each other and multiplying the reverse of 3/4. Therefore, it's 4/3 now. So this is actually even bigger than the CWND we're calculating there. So with loss, yeah, the amount of memory required to store data higher, the amount of unnecessary retransmission also higher. We can go on and on, right? Try to derive a more general model. So let me not go over the exact derivation, just tell you, if the loss probability is L, okay, one can actually come up with the TCP throughput being represented this way. Round trip time here, okay, square root of L here, and the maximum segment size here. Okay. Now, if take the same example here, take the same setting there. Packet size being 1500 bytes, round trip time being 100 milliseconds, and the goal throughput 10 gigabits per second. In order to achieve so, the loss rate needs to be as slow as this. 2 multiply 10 to the power of -10. Okay. Now this is a loss rate that's also impossible pretty much on the internet today. All right. So definitely we need new versions of TCP to support very high fat pipes going a long way. All right, so it's still ongoing research. The solution seems to be more modeling the throughput a little bit more, assuming different loss rate, and see what will be the best window size. Okay, so that was modeling. Next topic that is super hot, fairness. Another major issue is this, fairness. Okay, let's talk about fairness at this level first, the TCP fairness. Okay, so what we're talking about here, the goal is to make sure that the K TCP sessions will share the same amount of bandwidth if it go across the same link of bandwidth R. So the eventual share of the sending rate or the throughput should be R divided by K. Okay, so in this scenario, what you're seeing is the router in the middle, the capacity is R, and we have two connections. So connection 1 here should have half of R. And connection 2 here should have the equal amount. So we have two competing TCP sessions, and they're competing for a link with capacity R. So what I'm showing here are the relationship of connection 1 and connection 2's throughput. So one extreme is connection 1 gets the whole R, while connection 2 gets nothing. And this is the other extreme. Connection 2 gets R, while connection 1 gets nothing. The fair point is right here in the middle. Each of them gets half of R. So you see here, the dotted black line is to draw the equal bandwidth share, meaning if the bandwidth of connection 1 and 2 falls on this black line, yeah, they'll be fair to each other. Now, the blue line here, okay, is actually illustrating, this is actually the boundary, the capacity of the link. Okay? If the sum of connection 1 and 2 throughput goes beyond the blue line, that means congestion is beginning to occur, packets will begin to drop. Now let's say we start from here. Connection 1 having this much throughput, while connection 2 have very small throughput. As time goes by, okay, we're in congestion avoidance state, so we will continue to do additive increase. Therefore, connection 1's throughput will continue to increase, just like connection 2's throughput will continue to increase. And the characteristic the value of connection 1 and 2's throughput will fall along this line here with the slope of 1. Now, as it goes beyond the blue line here, this is actually beyond the network capacity, we'll begin to see packet drop. And what we'll see next is what? The two of them reducing the throughput to half of the value here. Okay, so this is connection 2's. Connection 2's throughput drop to half of it. Okay, right down here. Connection 1's throughput drop to half of it, right down here. Okay. So having a loss, decrease the window size by a factor of 2, and that takes us from here down to here. So this is the current throughput of connection 1 and connection 2. Let's move on, right? It will continue to go additive increase as we are in the congestion avoidance state. Crossing the boundary of blue line, drop packet again, and decrease the window size again. Okay, again by factor of 2. So we go down here. So you see, additive increase, multiplicative decrease. Additive increase. You see, the throughput of connection 1 and 2 are actually what? Approaching the equal bandwidth share. So TCP between the connections, the mechanism warrants that they will be fair to each other. So we see between TCP connections, they'll be fair to each other. But what about TCP to UDP? Multimedia applications actually prefer not to use TCP because TCP has this window size mechanism when there's congestion drop it, right? So the rate, sending rate is actually throttled by the congestion control mechanism. So some of the multimedia applications will prefer UDP, and they will send audio video data at high rate, constant rate, without really, adapting to congestion. So would that be fair? Of course not. Okay. And not to mention this, what if you have applications who open up multiple parallel TCP connections, okay, versus other applications who opens one TCP connection at a time to send data? Now consider this case. A link of rate R with 9 existing connections already, right? Then each have R over 9 share of the bandwidth. When there's a new app coming in asking for 1 TCP, that app then, right, will share with 9 existing connections and each get 1/10 of the R. But if the new app comes in and then asks for 9 parallel TCP connections, so that would be what? R dividing by 9 plus 9. And each connection is this much because the new app gets 9 of these, so let's multiply this by 9. New app gets half of R. So a new app designing this way versus a new app designing this way, okay, competing with other existing connections, it's actually hard to make it fair. And you know what? Web browsers, okay, these days do this. Okay, they might start parallel connections to fetch one page. Previously, Internet Explorer were very aggressive. Okay, for example, starting 8 parallel connections, 4 parallel connections to try to fetch web objects in a page. But nowadays, the HTTP consortium actually regulates so that they do not overdo this. Alright, so it's actually hard to make sure that it's going to be fair between TCP versus UDP. It's super hard to make sure that the application programmers not abuse starting applications with parallel TCP connections. So the only way to control that is by regulation. Okay, and that takes us to quiz 29. This quiz is straightforward. So could you show me? So maybe take your notebook out or take a piece of paper and draw if the starting point, okay, connection 1 and connection's throughput is different from the case that I have illustrated in the video is different. So look at the plot on the right. If the starting point, connection 1's throughput is low and connection 2's throughput is high, okay, so the big red dot. Could you show, as time goes on, the throughput of connection 1 and 2 will actually change according to TCP's congestion control mechanism. What would the convergence look like? Okay, would it always converge to the equal share? Okay, let's see if this case converges. Okay, so work on it. You have 5 minutes. Okay, wow, Naiming is really fast. Yep, that's about right. Kevin also, the curve is really curly. Okay. Okay, I mean, hey, that works for me. How do I mark? Here. Okay, great. So you get the idea. So maybe we don't need like 5 minutes. So you see here that similarly, right? Additive increase, that means R1 and R2 throughput both, when there is enough bandwidth, when there is enough network capacity, both of them will increase. So you get this linear increase thing going, right? And when you hit the multiplicative point that you need to drop down, then both connection 1 and 2 need to reduce the transmission rate to half of it. Yeah, so I think in Naiming's case, the reduction of R2, the connection 2, is probably a little too small. It can probably go down a little bit more aggressively, like Kevin. Okay, so from the upper right, right, R1's connection reduced to connection 1 reduced to half, connection 2 also reduced to half. Okay, being the one that has a high rate, the drop should be bigger. Okay, so I think Kevin's is a little bit closer to what really is. No problem, no problem. But magnitude-wise, Kevin, you did better. All right. Okay, good. So that was quiz 29. We will now have time to continue with the last video of chapter 3. That is ECN, another way of doing congestion control, the network assisted. And that is the detail of the mechanism. But the principle of the mechanism should be clear, as Polly has talked about it in the overview. All right. So the scope of the exam, hopefully that you will be able to read the video on Polly's Google YouTube channel about TCP ECN. So let's keep the scope all the way to the end of chapter 3 for exam 2. Okay. Now, in the meantime, let me try to address many questions. And very good that you guys tell Polly that somehow that figure there gets you confused. I know many of you are still working on quiz 28 probably. Okay. Good. Cayenne, you're good. So let me address the question because they are very important. Could be critical to the result of the exam tomorrow. All right. So Chendi was asking what 2 MSS meant. Yeah, that was very critical. Okay, so Polly's notion here, okay, on the diagram, okay, the diagram on the right. So what Polly meant there is SEQ equals 0 to 3 MSS minus 1. Okay, because these 4 packets, each is 1 MSS big. And so there'll be 4 of them. So the bytes count from sequence number 0 to 3 MSS. Wait a minute. 0 to 1 MSS, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. Oh, it should be 4 MSS minus 1. So Polly was actually incorrect here. That's why you guys didn't get it. But I guess some of you guys are actually following what Polly was saying. As you guys follow sequence number 4, 5, sequence number 6, 7 here. Yeah. So the dash, I think Cassie was asking that. Yeah, Cassie was thinking that H dash I MSS meant H subtracting I. Yeah. Okay, I should change my notation, definitely. I should probably use a tilted there. And it should be 0 tilted, 4 MSS subtracting 1. Okay. And so the sequence number for the first packet should be 0. Sequence number for the second packet should be 1 MSS. Sequence number for the third packet, 2 MSS. Sequence number for the fourth, 3 MSS. Okay. And therefore, host B here replying is asking for the next byte expected. That is exactly 1 MSS. Okay. So, good. Thank you for the feedback. Leon, Qiandi, and Kathy. I hope it's more clear now. I would definitely be revising the quiz slides and maybe changing the plots on the exam so that it's a little bit more clear. And Wei San was asking what is throughput. Yeah, it is the number of bytes received per time unit. Yeah. And Caffrey. Oh, thank you, Kevin. Thank you. But I think throughput on the slide meant more the bytes received. Okay, so usually the sender will be pushing some bytes out. So number of bytes transmitted within a certain time. But sometimes not all of these bytes get to the receiver. So throughput usually is more specific about bytes received, successfully received, divided by time. Okay, I hope that is a little bit more clear. Caffrey, oh, okay. With or without fast recovery, it won't retransmit any no loss, of course, if the packets are not lost. I think there were also students asking, in TCP, you probably realize by now, the receiver, when it receives out of order packet, what does the receiver do? In go back N, we just drop them, isn't it? And therefore, the sender will need to retransmit the flight of packet. But in TCP, all the implementations buffer the out of order packets. Okay, and I think that's one of the things that I mentioned in the differences of TCP to go back in, or the differences of TCP to the simplified TCP. So host B there, receiving the force packet there, will buffer the force packet. So 3 MSS, that packet is going to be buffered. 4 MSS, 5, 6, 7 MSS that are sent when the sender receives the first 2 acts, those will also be buffered. So you see that when the sequence number C MSS, the retransmission of packet 2 MSS was successful, the receiver would what? Send an ACK that ACK all the packets. Okay, after completing the gap and to the newest ACK that's received in order. Okay, so after receiving 2 MSS, host B will send an ACK that says how many MSS? Exactly, 8 MSS. It will acknowledge all the way to the last byte and asking for what is the next byte expected. Very good question, Caffrey. I think your classmates will thank you for you asking the question. Okay, so you're asking further, right? After retransmission, what is the ACK sequence number being generated, right, from host B? It's 9, because 7 MSS, at the end of it, it's the 8 MSS. Okay, but I think you get the idea. Okay, and let's see. Okay, Caffrey, I hope that you are following. And guys, definitely tell Caffrey, because it's already over the lecture hour. So the ACK coming back will be 8 MSS after the receiver receiving the retransmission. All right, and Kevin asked, so does UDP have fairness? you know what, UDP, if someone wants to just, push as much data in as possible, of course, it's not going to be fair to TCP. But people have been calculating what is the average throughput of TCP and advising or potentially regulating the UDP user such that they will be sending UDP based on that model. So currently, no, UDP versus TCP, it's not going to be fair. But in the future, maybe. Okay, I see. I think you probably meant to say number of bytes transmitted per second, Kevin. Okay, Zijun, does sender always send up to MSS? Okay, Zijun, this is a very good question. Again, this is a scenario Poly created for you to exercise the finite state machine. So I'm trying to make it simple. So the simplest way to describe such a scenario is to make every packet the same size. But I think you're probably asking something else. When the window size, okay, is, for example, because in this scenario we don't see like a fraction. Last week, right, when we are talking about incrementing the window size in the congestion avoidance state, it's what, 4 plus 1/4 of 4, and we have something like 4.25 as the CWND. So in that case, if I am defining that the transmission is always we send one entire MSS, that window size will be suggesting that the server cannot send the next packet, that needs to be one MSS. Okay, so even if the window size is 4.9, well, it's not enough to send a whole packet that needs to be one MSS. Therefore, you cannot send. Okay, so Zijun, that is yet another key question. I think the classmates will thank you as well. I guess these questions you guys won't be able to answer until you walk through quiz 28's scenario, until all these notions are clear. Hopefully this semester we get that problem set answered, okay, with good ratio of success. Okay, so Zijun, I hope that I answered your question, right? If Poly defining a problem that each packet needs to be one MSS, when the window size is not sufficient to send one MSS, then that packet will not be sent. Caffrey, in quiz 28, host A would send to A9. Exactly. Very good, Caffrey. It should be A, 9, and 10. It's not going to be 3 because the ACK is cumulative, and the way we ACK, if you go back to the delay ACK finite state machine, right? If you fill a gap, the ACK you send back is all the way to the latest packet that's received in order. And because packet 4, 5, 6, 7 are all buffered, meaning they are received, okay, and in order. So once packet 2 is received, receiver will see that, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all received, therefore ACK, AMSS. Okay. Previously, receiver is asking always 2 MSS because 2 MSS is missing, while 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all there. Okay, good. Caffrey. Now it should be clear, isn't it? If this is selective repeat, then we send, if we retransmit packet 2, then we send ACK 2. So if this is selective repeat, it will be 2, 9, 10. Caffrey. Yeah, go to the next class. You guys can come back to the very end of today's video recording. Great. Hopefully it's clear this time, all right? Hopefully it's clear this time. And go definitely go. The next class is beginning. Go. All right, bye.